of a high-profile member of Congress over the weekend. Tulsi Gabbard of Hawaii yesterday quitting her job as the DNC vice chair to endorse Bernie Sanders. Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard, good morning.
Good morning.
You're considered a rising star in the Democratic Party. You had a position of leadership in the Democratic National Committee. So what compelled you to step down?
Chris, as a veteran and as a soldier, the most important job for our president is their job as commander-in-chief. There is simply too much at stake here to stand on the sidelines and not speak out about the very clear differences and the clear choice that sits before the American people. It's important that we have a commander-in-chief who exercises good judgment, who has foresight, and who will not continue to take us into these interventionist regime change wars that we've seen occurring in Iraq, in Libya, with disastrous consequences, and now in Syria that will result in even greater disastrous consequences. I've come out and supported Bernie Sanders for president because he will be that commander-in-chief who will no longer take us into these interventionist wars and who will work towards bringing us to a place of peace.
The implication of that is that you don't think Hillary Clinton has that good judgment, or that she was at least responsible for disastrous judgments that led us to interventionist war. Is that what you're saying?
It is what I'm saying, because you can tell how a person will lead, what they will do in the future, by what they'll do in the past. And when you look at Hillary Clinton's record, in the U.S. Senate, she championed and voted for the war in Iraq. I don't need to go into detail about the tremendous cost that that war had on my brothers and sisters in uniform, their lives, those who've sacrificed their lives, those who've come home with tremendous invisible wounds, the cost on the country and the economic toll that it's taken, what to speak of the cost in the Middle East with thousands, hundreds of thousands of lives. Let's look at Libya. Hillary Clinton was the chief architect and champion for the overthrow of Gaddafi. Where is Libya today? It is a failed state full of chaos, with ISIS and Al-Qaeda having a greater stronghold there than they ever did before. And now with Syria, this is something that we're facing today and that our next commander-in-chief will have to deal with. Hillary Clinton has pushed for the overthrow of the Syrian government of Assad, which, if was successful, would strengthen ISIS, Al-Qaeda, and these other Islamist terrorist groups. And she says that she would call for a so-called no-fly zone, which would escalate the conflict there because it would put us in direct odds with Russia. And you can imagine the consequences of that with potential nuclear implications. Bernie Sanders' record is exactly the opposite, and that's really where there's a clear choice between the two.
You've just articulated so well how passionately you feel about this subject, though you were in a position to make change, as I mentioned at the top, someone who was in a position of leadership at the Democratic National Committee. Was it hard for you to make that decision? Because there obviously is something that you have given up, and that was to make change from the inside in a different way.
Yeah, Chris, I thought about this long and hard, and the question I was asking myself is where can I be most impactful? And it was growing increasingly frustrating to me, being in a position where I had to stay neutral and on the sidelines in this race, to see this key and most important issue of war and peace not being addressed, the media not pushing these candidates, not examining their record in the thorough way that voters deserve, and felt a responsibility both to my friends who I served with who didn't come home, to the veterans of my generation, and to the next generation who will come, to step away from the DNC and to come out and be able to speak strongly and clearly and candidly about the high stakes in this election and the clear choice that we have as Democrats in this primary between Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton.
Congresswoman, thank you so much for taking the time. Good to talk to you.
Thank you, Chris. Aloha.